Before we dive into this story, before you make up your mind about what's right or wrong, before you pass judgment on the choices made, before you assume you know what love truly means, let me ask you one thing. Have you ever sat beside your partner and felt completely invisible? If stories about raw emotions, unspoken pain, hard choices, and uncomfortable realities resonate with you, take a moment and hit that subscribe button now. This channel doesn't deal in fantasy or perfect love stories. These are reflections. They show us pieces of ourselves we often try to ignore. And please stay until the final moment, because this story isn't about what the title suggests. The deeper truth unfolds gradually, just like emotional distance does. Now, let's begin. My name is Clara Mitchell. When this chapter of my life started, I was 35 years old, living in a quiet, unhurried town in Ohio, the kind of place where urgency doesn't exist. Neighbors greet strangers with a smile. The pharmacist knows your family history. Seasons arrive predictably, and life flows gently without disruption. I worked as a family therapist at a small private practice. Every day, couples and individuals sat across from me in my softly lit office. They spoke about insecurity, loss, uncertainty about tomorrow, confusion about identity, and isolation. I listened carefully. I offered comfort. I helped them express emotions they couldn't articulate themselves. What they never realized was that after they walked out, after the door clicked shut, I often remained motionless for several minutes, staring blankly because I couldn't apply that wisdom to my own heart. From the outside, my existence appeared settled, secure, perhaps even admirable. I had a meaningful profession, a cozy, modest home, a husband I had spent 11 years building a life with. No public disagreements, no whispered rumors, no dramatic confrontations, no bitter social media confessions. Friends often remarked the same thing. "You're blessed, Clara. Your marriage seems so tranquil." And technically, they weren't wrong. But tranquility and fulfillment are entirely different things. My husband's name is Daniel Mitchell. Daniel worked in finance, mostly remotely. He was sharp, dependable, and profoundly introverted. He wasn't harsh. He wasn't thoughtless. He simply existed within his own walls. Daniel believed avoiding confrontation maintained harmony. He assumed that if issues remained unspoken, they would naturally disappear. If something wasn't acknowledged, it couldn't truly exist. For years, I accepted that philosophy too. Our relationship didn't shatter in one devastating instant. There was no deception, no raised voices, no sudden devastation. What occurred was subtler and somehow more agonizing. We separated gradually, wordlessly. We continued sharing meals at the same table, occupying the same sofa, resting in the same bed. But our exchanges became briefer. Joy vanished. Meaningful glances ceased. At night we lay turned, away from each other, backs occasionally brushing, minds existing in separate universes. There was no closeness, only habit. And habit, when ignored, can strangle affection without producing a single sound. The most painful aspect was not recognizing when it started. Isolation doesn't introduce itself. It settles in when nobody genuinely inquires about your feelings. When your innermost thoughts remain imprisoned, when proximity no longer equals connection. Certain nights I gazed at the darkness above and questioned, is this simply what commitment evolves into? Does warmth inevitably surrender to emptiness? I convinced myself this was ordinary, that established relationships naturally retreat into comfortable monotony. But somewhere inside, I felt erased. What I didn't realize then was that Daniel sensed the growing gap too. Daniel observed my hollow smiles, my subdued melancholy, how I stopped sharing my experiences. But rather than confronting it, he retreated deeper. Two souls positioned on opposite edges of identical struggles, both terrified to acknowledge it until one unremarkable evening shifted everything. I was organizing photographs in the den. Background music played softly, but neither of us noticed it. Daniel entered and settled beside me on the love seat. No device, no screen, no escape, just stillness. When I met his gaze, I noticed something unusual: openness. "Clara," he whispered, "something's been weighing on me." My fingers stopped moving. "What is it?" I responded. He inhaled deeply. "About us." That simple phrase carried unexpected weight. "I recognize you're struggling," he continued. And I acknowledge I haven't been able to connect with you the way I once did. For a heartbeat, words escaped me. This was the first occasion he had ever verbalized it. "You're correct," I finally confessed. "I can't pinpoint the moment, but something essential between us has disappeared." What followed stunned me completely. "I'd like to attempt something unconventional." I looked confused. "Unconventional how?" He paused uncertainly. "I've researched how certain couples explore deeper understanding. Not infidelity, not disloyalty, just insight." My pulse quickened. "Explain clearly," I demanded. He lowered his eyes. "I want you to encounter someone just once. Someone I select." My breath caught. "I'll be present," he added hastily. "Not participating, just observing. I need to comprehend what you're lacking." Initially I laughed bitterly, then tears came. It seemed absurd, hurtful, twisted, but beneath my frustration lurked something far more perilous. Anticipation. Anticipation that this might finally compel authenticity. A week elapsed. I expected Daniel to reconsider. He didn't. One evening he presented a small note. A name, a location, a time. "His name is Nathan," he murmured. "He respects the limitations." I couldn't determine whether to rage or flee. Instead, I agreed. Something within me craved reality, regardless of the consequences. The bookshop cafe was hushed, warmly lit, protected. Nathan appeared unremarkable initially. Composed, engaged, genuinely present, and therein lay the complication. He posed thoughtful questions. He absorbed every word. He never spoke over me. For the first time in ages, I felt acknowledged. I smiled more during that single hour than I had in countless months, and when I departed, shame trailed me home. That evening I didn't experience thrill. I experienced mourning because the hollow feeling wasn't about Nathan. It was about everything absent from my own partnership. The following morning I faced Daniel across the breakfast table. "I don't want to repeat this," I stated. He agreed. "Neither do I." And for the first time in years we communicated. Not superficially, not guardedly, but genuinely. We discussed anxiety, about evasion, about how silence had seemed less frightening than exposure, and gradually, painfully, we started rebuilding. This story isn't about consent. It's about emotional abandonment. It's about how devotion doesn't perish in thunderous destruction. It dissolves in silent spaces. If you've ever felt alone beside someone you cherish, this story belongs to you. And if you're still here, subscribe because the most difficult truths are precisely the ones we must confront.